Hey everybody, it's good to have you with us. I was going to say Thanksgiving. It's Valentine's Day, 2021. We are going to be continuing on. We're going to jump actually right into it and look at the teleological argument in our I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist study. So glad you could join us. If you're coming in late on this, you can jump back on some of the previous videos and go to the first one, actually, if you want to, and look at what we're dealing with. We're looking at, and the reason we called it I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, we're looking at the word faith as a belief system. It's just your worldview. And what we're saying is, are there reasonable evidences that lead us more towards the fingerprint of God on creation versus just random chance and happenstance? And that's kind of what we're going to be dealing with and looking at as we continue on. We said a few weeks ago we were going to do a little deep dive on some of these arguments, the cosmological argument, which we've covered, looking at the heavens, fingerprint of God, looking at where we're at now, the divine design argument, the teleological argument, which is the argument of design. If you have a design, you have a designer. If you have a building, you have a builder. If you have some type of language, you have an alphabet, or an alphabet, you have a person that speaks the language. So that's kind of what we're looking at, the information that's present in creation, and how did it get here? And we'll get more into that as we go along. But let's have a word of prayer. Father, we want to thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to be here today. Thank you for this time that we have together to be able to not even really get into deep Bible study on this as of yet, and looking at miracles in the New Testament and whatnot. We're just looking at some of the evidences and some of the fingerprint of God, I believe, that you've left for us to look wondrously at. And we thank you in Christ's name again to be able to do what we're doing here today. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Dustin, would you hand me my yellow notebook over there? I think I laid it right on top of those file folders right there on your left. Thank you. All right, we're going to continue on, and I need to go. I've got my son-in-law. There we go.
Take the mouse off the other side and click. Okay, now you can just go back to looking at the other screen. Don't click again.
I hope I clicked it. He's helping me out here today as we get this.
Arrow key.
I'm looking for the arrow key. Yeah, there we go. Make sure it works. All right, let's get into this, folks. Let's look at irreducible complexity. What we had talked about last week and what we had gotten into is that there is complexity to design. And we had pointed out last week, I think I had said I was going to show a picture. I don't think I spent a lot of time, I don't really remember so much, but on what's called the flagellum, and how that the complexity of the flagellum, which is related to cellular movement and molecular movement, and the one's called a bacterial flagellum, and I'll show you what that is here in just a second. How that, as well as with a mousetrap, you need all parts for the flagellum to work. You gotta have everything. Excuse me. You gotta have everything going at the same time, in order for it to be a process that works. Every part works together at the same time. Same thing is true with a mousetrap. If you take one part away from the mousetrap and its functionability, it doesn't work anymore. And the question is, with some of these complex designs that we see in the universe, and you know, we're not ashamed to say we're coming from the perspective of that there is a God. So we're looking at special creation here versus random chance and process and millions and billions of years. So when we take that into consideration, which one is more reasonable? What seems to be the thing that actually has a tendency to show that's most reasonable per se? And we're going to get into DNA. We're going to get into, as we go in the next couple of weeks, into looking at the origin of life and whatnot. But let me read to you something here. It's called the equal burden of proof. And it says this: atheists must support why it's more likely that life arose by natural forces. Theists must support why it's more likely that life arose by intelligent intervention or intelligent design. So what we're saying is to keep our minds open to the perspective of what is more reasonable, what seems to make more sense. Occam's razor. If it smells like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, sounds like a duck, it probably is a duck. So when you're looking at the pieces of the puzzle that go together, the question we have to ask ourselves and be honest with ourselves is, what's the probability of this thing happening? And we're going to have a little bit of fun with this tonight, because we're going to look at some of those probabilities versus this complex design that God's made in his creation. And we're going to look at some insects, and we're going to look at some animals tonight that and not so much even getting into the Bible with this, but looking at it from the perspective of when they were made, what they're able to do now. Is it more reasonable to believe that they were created special one time, got it right the first time, versus trial and error, versus maybe they wouldn't exist at all if there was a trial and error period? If you get where I'm going with this. So let's have a little bit of fun with this tonight as we get into it. I've got a picture here. If you look at the screen, this is a picture of a sand sculpture on the beach. Now, a lot of times when you first look at this, you go, wow, it's a sculpture or someone's created this out of stone. No, it's made out of sand. And someone took the time to make this out of sand. If we were walking down the beach and I were to look at this as I was walking with you and point you to it, and I said, hey, John, look at this over here. Just wanted to let you know, I was here last night and the waves come in and did this. What would you say? You'd say, I don't think so. Why would you say that? You instinctively know that waves and random motion of the ocean and the back and forth process of the waves didn't come in and make this thing. I don't care if you gave it one night a week or, it doesn't, as well as I do, waves are not going to make and do this because of the intricacy and being honest with ourselves, the ability of this thing to say what it says in its complexity. If you get what I'm getting to, it wasn't by chance or happenstance or just random waves coming in and making this thing. What made this? A mind made this. Intelligence made this. Someone made this, and you know it instinctively by looking at it. So let's take that particular persuasion with us as we get into looking at some of the details of design that we see in creation. Now, this is what's called the flagellum. If you'll look on the screen, you're gonna, or look at the picture here, you're gonna see this thing. It looks like a tail. It actually looks like a sperm here. By the way, I think the tail on the sperm is a flagellum, but this is a tailpiece that's on this particular cell, and it has a function. It has the ability to do something. Now, before you found out how detailed and how complex this system of this tailpiece was, you kind of look at it and you go, well, it just looks like a cell that's got a little tail on the back end of it, and it's still a globular, piece of jello or whatever that has the ability to move. Well, it does way more than that. The flagellum, when you look it up and you see the intricacy that's involved with that, this tailpiece has the ability to cause locomotion on the cellular and molecular level. It gives the cell the ability to move, turn on a dime, if you please, and it has with it the ability to function mechanically that and do things mechanically that even we today can't engineer and design to do. And I want you to take a look at the diagram here. The illustration here shows you the parts that are related to the flagellum. You have the tailpiece or the filament. There's a junction, there's a hook, L ring, rod, P ring. You've got a cell wall, a stator. You've got MS ring, C ring, type 2 secretion system. You've got the ability for this thing to move from here to here, almost like what we would quote say, you know, a person would say, hey, I saw a UFO and it was going, you know, parallel, and then all of a sudden it just shot up vertically and it came back down and went horizontally and has the ability to turn on that kind of angle and whatnot. That's what this can do. This is what they have the ability to do. It's just crazy in their design to be able to do what they can do. Now, this is, if you look on the right side, you'll see part of a process here of animation, and then illustration of the stator, the tailpiece, the rotor. It's just the bushings that are in the universal joint. The question is, when we see this kind of complexity in creation and what it can do, and we know now what it can do we say that happened by chance? Do we say that this happened over millions or billions of years? Do we say this thing has the ability to do what it does today because of trial and error over random processes over time? Or does it look like that mousetrap? Or does it look like that this thing, you know what? It wouldn't work if it wasn't working at the beginning, at the same time of its creation, at the same time that it was made, which disallows, if you please, the slow, gradual process of time and what we would call evolutionary aspects of this thing coming into existence. And I do believe in special creation, as I stated earlier. So the question is going to be, what's more reasonable? Given enough time, given enough chance, given enough whatever it may be, do we have faith to believe that this could have taken place and happened on its own? Or can we maybe point faith in the other direction and say, you know what, I think it all had to happen at one time when it was created. Now, like I said, we're gonna have a little bit of fun with this. This right here is what's called a Weta grasshopper. There's also something called a cave Weta. Now, this particular insect, if you'll notice the person that's holding this, look how big this thing is in this person's hand. This Weta grasshopper is, I think they get up to 7 inches long. They can weigh up to 3 ounces, 2.5 to 3 ounces. They're huge for a grasshopper, largest insect, I think, in the world. And the word Weta actually means God of ugly things. And I have a tendency to agree with that. It is a very ugly thing. Some Wetas actually have tusks that can eat meat. They have ears on their knees. They breathe through their exoskeleton. That's their shell, if you want to say it that way. But when I was reading up on the Weta, this is what I found, that they're saying they found them during what's called the Triassic period in the fossil quote record. And during the Triassic period, the Weta that has been found and fossilized is very much like the Weta that we have today. By the way, you see that over and over again in fossils. You'll see sometimes they're bigger or whatnot, but or you know, it'll have a larger wingspan on something and whatnot, but it's still very, very similar to what we have today. Now, we don't see those intermediate jumps between species and whatnot. We talked a little bit about micro evolution and macro evolution last week, I believe. But the question is going to be the ability for this thing to be made the way that it is. The ability to be able to do what it does is just amazing. And one of the things that I wanted to point out is the cave Weta. The cave Weta, they call it cave Weta, lives in caves. Caves are where? On mountaintops. And mountains get very, very cold. What happens to the cave weeda during the wintertime? Go online if you get an opportunity. I think I've got a picture here. Maybe I thought I did, maybe not yet. I thought I had a picture of it. The cave weeda actually during the wintertime freezes, and I mean freezes, covered with ice freezes. And then it thaws itself out and goes along its merry way when springtime comes and the temperatures get warmer. The question is going to be, what gave this thing the ability to do that? How does this thing function to be able to freeze and thaw and come out of the thaw and be able to be functioning normally as if it were before it was frozen? The cryogenics of this thing is just phenomenal. Is it easier to believe that through trial and error and processes? See, the question you have to ask yourself with these things, that what I'm getting to, is at what stage of the process did it not work? At what stage of the process did this thing ultimately fail? And when it failed, it doesn't exist anymore. It's not here anymore because it didn't have the ability through trial and error to get where it's at now. Does it make more sense that it has the ability to do what it does right here, right now? That's going to be the question. And that's kind of what we're looking at here. This right here is a particular beetle. Let's look at some beetles and ants real quick. I told you we're having fun with this. This is called the oogpister. And the oogpister beetle, actually the name of it means this. It's kind of funny. It means to pee in the eyes. Yeah, and I mean like pee in the eyes. It means to pee in the eyes. And I think it's in South Africa, the oogpister. It has the ability to give what's called an acid blast. When an enemy comes and tries to eat this thing, as it gets closer, it'll rear up its rear end and give it a little shot and shoot a little bit of bitter acid on this thing, and boom, they get a little funny taste in their mouth, they get a little sting, and they're gone. They don't try to eat this bug. What I'm getting to, and we're going to see in a minute how this works with the bombardier beetle. The question is, how does it function this way? Where did they get the ability, the right chemical processes, the ability to have, part A and part B, and the complexes for this thing to be able to mix, and for this thing to be able to do what it does? Is it by chance? Did it happen by random processes? Or can we believe, when this thing had the ability to defend itself with an acid blast, it had to be done right the first time at the very beginning, when it was made and it came into existence and it came into creation? This is what's called the devil rider. Okay, now if you look on the screen here, the devil rider, look behind this thing's or on its neck, behind its head, you're going to see this photo showing a little spray, and it does kind of what the oogpister beetle does, but this is shooting what's called terpenes. And terpenes are a very toxic, bitter type, again, chemical warfare defense system. And this is how it survives. Something comes up on this thing to grab it and whatnot, and it gives it a little shot. Again, the ability to chemically be able to do these processes, just the chemical nature of this kind of self-defense is mind-blowing. So the question again is going to be, do we see a fingerprint of God on this, or was it just by chance that this thing is able to do what it does? And it's called the devil rider. I put a picture up here that it doesn't show the blast, but these are what's called European wood ants. They do have the ability as well to give a little shot of sting, if you please, like a well, I think they call them nettles, the little ocean swimming nettle jellyfish. And you get a sting. If you've ever been stung by a jellyfish, you know kind of what that is. The same kind of poison, or the same types of poisons and whatnot. This ant is able to do that. Say a bird flies in, a crow lands in the middle of the European wood ant nest and begins to eat these ants. they all surround the feet of that crow, and they begin to give little shots of this poison on the feet of the crow, and the crow's had enough. He's done. He's out of here. He gives up because of the sting. Again, chemical processes that we're looking at here. Now, this is the mother of all beetles, or the master of all beetles. This is the bombardier. Years ago, when I first saw and got a glimpse of this thing and what it can do, and if you go online, you can watch some amazing videos of the bombardier beetle and what they are able to do. I heard people over the years say that they have the ability to shoot fire out of and it's not fire. It probably feels like fire, and whatever's in the path of this thing as it uses this chemical warfare in defense, it probably feels as such, but it's not really fire. It is a caustic hot liquid, and it pulsates. If you look at slow motion video, go online when you get an opportunity. Slow motion video, this thing has the ability to do 500 pulses up to 1,000 per second, not minute, per second. So that's 1,001, 1,000 in that time. Now, how does it do what it does? How does the bombardier beetle shoot this hot, flaming, stinko, caustic juice, what we call hot, flaming, burning type juice? How does it do what it does? Well, take a look with me here. There's some chemicals that are involved, okay? I'm not going to go into great detail. I've done a lot of reading on this. It has the ability to mix with enzymes in the chemical processes that this bombardier beetle is able to produce and defend itself from enemies. When it starts to, it gives a little warning shot, I think, first before it actually does the chemical warfare. But when it actually begins to blast, this thing's at 100 degrees Celsius, it says here, that's basically the boiling point of water. It's just amazing what it can do. But the chemicals that are involved with the bombardier beetle mixes what's called enzymes. That means it doesn't, when it's in the chambers in this animal, it doesn't really have the mixture to explode or blow up or fire off and do what it does until it senses danger. When it senses danger, then that's where the chambers come into effect. The chemicals mix, and through that mixture, then they're able to do the chemical warfare against their enemies. Now, I've got some pictures of her. I actually snipped some of this from a video, and these are some animations of the chambers that are in the bombardier beetle. And if you'll notice, you got one on the left and one on the right. And I want to show you something here as the chemicals are being mixed up. If you look at the top of the screen, you're going to see the tubes and the chambers and whatnot. And this is what they are. There are what's called the ducts, the tubes that transfer the secreted chemicals. Then you have the reservoirs. These are the chambers that store the chemicals, okay, until it's needed. You have the reaction chamber down below, and it mixes the elements to produce the chemicals. And then you have the valves at the very bottom that release into the mixture and is able to, release the chemical explosion, if you please. It's pretty fascinating the way that it works. And it not only is it fascinating the way that it works, it's fascinating as to how well it works when you see some of these videos. Now, question again, it's going to be, by chance, well, let's go back up here. Let me ask you this question. Over a period of long process, gradual processes of time, random chance and whatnot, how many chances did this bombardier beetle get to get this thing right? Okay, you've got part A, part B, you've got chemical mixtures, you've got the enzymes, you've got the oxygen, you've got, it's got hydrogen peroxide in this thing, you get the catalase in this thing. So my guess is going to be, if it's not done right the first time, the beetle's not going to be around. And what's going to happen? It's going to become extinct. Why? Because of the process of this thing to do what it does and to defend itself the way that it defends itself, You pretty much have to get this chemical warfare process done right the first time. And in getting it done right the first time, question is going to be, does that sound more like, it's more reasonable to suspect that it was done by an intelligent mind that designed it to do this, or it was just random chance and it got really, really lucky and it had the ability to do this through the processes of warfare and through the processes of being chased and hunted down over time and whatnot. No, I would say if we want to be reasonable with it, we would look at this thing and say, it probably had to get done right the first time. And the question is going to be, what done it? What done it? To make it get done right the first time. Okay, now let's look at something else here. I'll take a little bit of time here before we close here today. The giraffe. If you've never studied the giraffe, do it. It's amazing. The giraffe is, when we look at it, we first think clumsy. We think lumbering, bumbling, inability to move along, get along, and which is not the case at all. It's just so big and long legs and long neck and whatnot. Even when it runs, by the way, it can run 30 to 35 miles per hour. When we look at this thing, we have a tendency, because it is so big, to look at it that way. Not so much. This thing is a fascinating study of design and getting it right. Evolution tells us that what happened was that over time, it actually was probably short-legged and short-necked, and it had to compete for food, and food was browsed higher and higher and higher, and over millions of years it had to extend its neck to eat off of the trees, and eventually it got a long neck because it had to eat off the trees and whatnot. And not so much. You can probably take that thing around the other way. What if we had a short-necked animal with really long legs? Let's just turn it over on its head. Instead of having, a short-legged animal that got long legs and, got a long neck, let's go with the short neck and long legs, and over time it, mushed down. One's as good as the other, is what I'm saying there. This thing is built to do what it does first time around. And it's fascinating how it does it. It's fascinating the way that it does it. Now, let me scroll through here just real quick and just show you the pictures, and then we're going to come back up to them, okay? This is the neck curl, or what giraffes do, called necking. And you've probably seen this on TV, National Geographic or whatnot. You'll see two giraffes that kind of do what's called necking, and kind of wrap their necks around each other and fight and show affection at times, and however that works. There's another picture of it right there. Their ability to use their neck to curl, the way that it curls, is just phenomenal. But let me point out something here. If you'll notice here, it's got its legs spread, and it's going to get a drink of water, so it's got to spread its legs. It's got an 18-foot reach to get water. Blood has got to pump 18 feet. Now, it's not only a very, very tall animal, it's a very heavy animal. And it being heavy and it having the stability with its legs, the ability to do what it does, to get that drink of water without passing out, is short of a miracle. What we're looking at, folks, here, as far as I'm concerned, is a miracle. This thing has a 2.5-foot long heart. So think about that. That's probably 2.5 foot right there. 2.5 foot long heart, weighs 25 pounds, pumps 16 gallons of blood per minute. That's pretty big pump system going on there. But if you had to lower your head at that distance to get a drink, going down with the blood pumping, with the respiratory effects of this animal, with the pumping that the blood does. By the way, I did find out that NASA studied the skin of a giraffe to use for spacesuits. And the reason they studied the skin of a giraffe is because the tightness of a giraffe's skin actually puts pressure on blood vessels and arteries and whatnot to help with blood flow. And they looked at it for the purpose of creating spacesuits for astronauts to be in elements with no gravity and whatnot. So it's pretty amazing that they understand the fact that the skin in of itself is relative to the pumping of the blood in this animal. And it's pretty significant for the fact that this animal has the ability to reach down and get water without passing out. And this is what I want to show you. If you look at the picture here, diagram that I have right here, the giraffe has 7 neck bones. Guess what? You and I have 7 neck bones. Doesn't mean that we came from a giraffe or a giraffe came from us or what. Could it be design? It doesn't have to be. A spoon is similar to a pot, and we'll deal more with this, I think, next week or the week after. A spoon is similar to a pot. They both have a handle. They have a concave ability to hold product in it. Pot's bigger, larger capability to handle more product and whatnot, but it basically does the same thing. Does it mean the pot evolved from the spoon, or can it mean, same designer or similar design? We see that, and this is the kinds of questions we have to ask ourselves. Did it come from that, or is it just a similar design? Chevys and Fords, similar design. 4 tires, engine, hood, roof, cars, whatnot, have similar design. And this is what we're kind of looking at. What's more reasonable to think? Is it just a similar design here? But if you look at the neck of this giraffe, actually has the ability to do that necking, to do the neck curl, to be able to lower itself, and that head that's on this neck. If you look how long that neck is, I'm showing you this because I want you to see this diagram right here. Extending the neck upward or downward, in doing so at that type of height with the weight of the neck. By the way, the neck of this animal, the neck of a giraffe, is about 500 pounds. Perfectly balanced. Now, why would it be perfectly balanced? Because if the neck of the giraffe was heavier, that thing would probably be walking on its front feet because of its rear end being raised up because of the length and the weight of the neck. It's a little bit funny, but you know what I'm saying. It's not tilted. This thing has the ability to run it at the speed, to do what it does, and do it well and function well. But one of the fascinating aspects of the giraffe and its ability to drink water is that as it bends down and drinks water, if you'll notice on the diagram, you're going to see the carotid artery that's here, and then you also see these valves that are in the neck. Then you see the segments. There's the red line, and they're segmented off. These are shunts, what you would call shunts or valves. They actually have the ability to increase or reduce blood flow in the neck of the giraffe that's going to the brain. If the giraffe goes down too quick, and I'm sure you ever been sitting down before and you jump up real fast and you get woozy and dizzy and whatnot, or you were laying down and you jump out of the bed real fast and you almost want to fall back down because of getting lightheaded and whatnot. Well, the same thing would happen to the giraffe going down and going up if not for these shunts and the ability for the regulation of the blood flow to the brain. Now, these shunts work for the process of this giraffe being able to lower its head, get a drink of water, and then raise its head back up without passing out. And you having dead giraffes laying all over the place. And remember, the heart, as big as this thing is, pumping blood the way that it does, There's this mechanism that's built into the giraffe that causes this giraffe to be able to drink water, to be able to, and by the way, only sleep, I think 20 minutes a night, 5 minutes at a time, whatever, for it to be able to survive like that. It's just amazing and phenomenal. But this giraffe has these processes that are built in for it to be able to survive. Now, if you'll notice these shunts or these valves, right at the base of the brain, look on the diagram here, you're going to see at the base of the brain, in the carotid artery, and these shunts, there's this round bulbous type thing. It's got red circles, blue circles, and whatnot. This is a sponge, or what we would, they're actually blood vessels, but it acts like a sponge. If you'll look at that last little section up toward the head at the base of the brain, where that last shunt is at, that last valve is at, there's still enough blood and blood pressure and blood flow in that last section of blood flow to kill the giraffe. And it has this area of blood vessels, this spongy area of blood vessels that still acts for that last segmented push of blood to cause a reduction or an increase going up and down, however it works, so that this thing doesn't pass out. And my question would be, how did all this get here? How did all of this happen? Did it have to be right the first time? Is it designed to work this way? Is it designed, and is intelligence behind the design to be able to do what it does? The engineering that is behind this thing for it to be able to do what it does. Does it sound like that the giraffe really wouldn't have much of a chance if it couldn't survive the way that it does, with the functionality of these processes in its body? I would say so. You know, I don't have enough faith to believe and worldview to believe that when you have this kind of design, that is just by accident. And remember, as we get in down the road, we're going to look at some areas of evolution. Remember what evolution teaches. Evolution teaches that there's this slow, gradual process of change, and it's unguided. That's the key word to this. And evolutionists will tell you it's unguided. And that means there is no intelligence behind it. There's no. It's all just by chance. And that's what evolution goes for, the fact that there's this unguided process. Well, does this look unguided? Or does it look like there's design? That's why I say we need to look at the most reasonable answer to some of these things. Does it look like it's designed? Does it look like it's designed to work? Does it look like it's designed to work the first time? And that's the whole process, and that's the whole thing we need to take a gander at, and we need to take a look at. And it's pretty amazing that the giraffe can survive just by its size and whatnot, and the functionality that's built in for the survival of the giraffe. The bombardier beetle, same thing. The survivability of this thing with a chemical, defense system that's built into its body. The devil rider and the ability of these caustic chemicals that are in these animals. Is it by design, or was it just by slow processes, chemical reaction of those processes doing what it does? Or is there some type of mind behind it? Remember, at the very beginning of what we're getting into right now, at the very, very beginning of this, we looked at the structure on the beach, the sculpture on the beach. When you look at that, you know that a mind is behind it. We got to ask the same question here tonight. Is there a mind behind what we're seeing now? What's the process that we see now? I have to give the affirmative. That's my personal opinion. And that's why we're calling this, I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. I have to go with the fact that there's an intelligence behind this design. There's an intelligence behind. We're going to get into next week a little bit related to DNA and the language and the coding that's in DNA. The longest, largest, and most informationally packed alphabet in the world, known to mankind, is DNA. The information that's there, where did it come from? How did it get there? We know that all information comes from design. It comes from a designer. It comes from mind. It comes from intelligence. And we'll get more into that as we go along. And what I want us to just take a look at is when we look at these things, is ask ourselves the question: what's more reasonable? What's the more reasonable aspect, or when we look at these things, to say, maybe it wasn't just all by accident. And I don't believe we're all here by accident. And I'm going to close with this. I believe in special creation. That means I believe that we are created by God. Again, I don't know how old the earth is. I don't know that the Bible even tells us how old the earth is. I'm not even going to go there. There's a lot of processes to that. But I do know when we were made in the image of God, that as a special creation, being in God's image and God making us, that means there's purpose. I think believing any other way, there's no purpose, there's no reason, there's no focus for living. It's if you believe you're just here by accident, you're probably going to live as an accident. If you believe, most of us believe, if most of us believe that we're just another animal per se, we're probably going to be animalistic. And that's what evolution teaches. It teaches to a degree that we are animalistic. Right from wrong, we covered all of that and whatnot the first couple of weeks. When I leave this world and I die, I don't believe that I'm going to become just fertilizer. As a special creation of God, I have the hope, and I do believe that I am going to, quote, meet my maker one day. And I trust in that fact. I have hope in that. And that's where my assurance lies. And when I see the evidences of looking at creation and whatnot, I can't but help come away from the fact that, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. The heavens declare the handiwork of God. I can't escape that. I can't get away from that. And that's our goal. That's our purpose, is wanting you to look that direction, to go that route. All right, folks, we're going to wrap this thing up tonight. Again, if you have any questions or comments or anything that you want us to talk about on one of these particular sessions that we do, go to our website, www.trunbc, True North Bible Church, trunbc.com. And if you go there, you can click on our email, shoot us an email, and we'll get back to you. We'll hopefully be able to answer a question for you or talk about something related to that. If it's a private message, send a private message. Be more than happy to converse with you as well. God bless you, everybody. Thank you very, very much. We appreciate your support. Again, like, subscribe, and then we also have the informational links and whatnot down below here. Everybody have a wonderful, wonderful evening, and have a blessed day tomorrow and this week.